Chinese attack robots. Starting off the list of the most incredible military vehicles is something that might surprise you. Believe it or not, China is apparently developing killer robots. While these attack robots might not look like the giant power suits from the Matrix, they're still pretty intense. They're also becoming more and more advanced as every year goes by. From automated guns that can choose their own targets to artificially intelligent drones, killer robots are on the rise in China, and indeed the world. In fact, some people are so worried about the Chinese attack robots that activists have been calling for the world to create a treaty banning this type of technology before it's too late. This is because killer robots are no longer just something we see in the movies. They're being made, and before long, you might see some pretty crazy war machines stomping around on the battlefield. And if you think, well, I've heard this before and it's still a long way off, you'd be wrong. In 2016 alone, the world body held its first killer robot negotiations. That's how real killer robots are becoming. 4 years later, in 2020, there are not a lot of rules on the development of automated war machines. The future is definitely going to be one scary place. For example, take a look at the Lima 002 automated patrol robot being used in Singapore to enforce social distancing. We're literally about to enter the future, and not in a good way. Wuhan Doomsday Tunnels. By far, one of the most horrifying secret military bases is actually built under the Chinese city of Wuhan, the city where the coronavirus allegedly started from back in 2020. According to a report from Express News, China actually built the secret doomsday tunnels underneath this city to serve as a special headquarters for a division of the military in the possible event of a nuclear war. There are reports claiming that there are hundreds of feet of tunnels about 50 miles from Wuhan, complete with meeting rooms, offices, and other command centers. It's currently unclear if this secret military installation has anything to do with the virus that ravaged the world, but it's definitely a possibility. Of course, this base was apparently built at the end of the 1960s, so the virus in the base may not be related. But the truth is, nobody really knows what's going on, especially when the Chinese military is involved. And even though the tunnels were recently open to the public and featured as a tourist attraction, there could still be some funny business going on behind closed doors. After all, it's highly unlikely that any country would turn a secret military installation into a tourist site without some kind of ulterior motive. The official size of the complex has never been disclosed, and there's a chance it could be much larger than people realize. The Shredder. The M1150 Assault Breacher Vehicle, also known as the Shredder, is a United States military vehicle used for clearing mines and explosives. This thing is an absolute powerhouse. It's equipped with a mine plow and can barrel through a field, detonating mine after mine so that other vehicles can come in behind it. The main body of this beast is built on top of the same chassis that's used for the M1A1 Abrams battle tank. The plow was designed by a special engineering company in the United Kingdom, and overall, the vehicle weighs 72 tons. That's quite a bit more than your standard elephant. Additionally, the vehicle is fitted with a .50 caliber machine gun and metallic skies that allow it to glide across the dirt. It even comes with 7,000 pounds of explosives that it can use to clear the way for incoming forces. This vehicle is great because it only requires a crew of 2 soldiers. It can improve the survivability of any combat situation by clearing mines and detonating missiles all across a minefield to make it safe for the rest of the soldiers to move through any particular area. The Mi-24 attack helicopter. There's nothing quite as cool as an attack helicopter. Even just saying it sounds cool. And one of the best and most ferocious attack helicopters of all is the Mi-24 Hind, developed by Russia. It's been nicknamed the Flying Tank because of its ability to fire while still flying. The helicopter first entered the service back in the days of the Soviet Union in the late 1970s, and since then it's been deployed to at least 40 countries. There have been more than 3,500 of these helicopters produced, and believe it or not, they've been used in at least 40 different wars. And no, that's not even all the wars that have been going on since the 70s. The helicopter was designed to carry 8 combat troops while still being a gunship. The newest versions of the Mi-24 come armed with anti-tank missile systems so that they can engage with moving targets on the ground, even vehicles heavily armored. According to Air Force technology, this helicopter has a total of 6 suspension weapon units on the wingtips, making it absolutely deadly in any kind of combat. V-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft. The V-22 Osprey is one of the strangest and most amazing military vehicles ever. It was developed by Boeing and Bell Helicopters and is a strange mix between a chopper and a plane. It takes off and lands vertically, but once airborne, it converts into an aircraft and flies just like normal. It's one of the most advanced vertical takeoff and landing systems ever designed, and there are currently about 112 of them being operated by the United States Air Force and the United States Marine Corps. Let's get into the specifics of this giant warbird. It can take off vertically with a payload of 24 troops or a total of 6,000 pounds of cargo. The V-22 can be self-deployed from anywhere in the world. Plus, it comes with a ferry range of over 2,100 nm. There are currently 3 different configurations of this wildly successful vehicle available. It comes as a Combat Assault and Assault Support MV-22, a Long-Range Special Operations CV-22, or a Combat Search and Rescue Special Warfare and Fleet Logistics Support HV-22. Basically, the V-22 Osprey is available for any operation. Kapustin Yar. Kapustin Yar is basically the Area 51 of Russia. It was the site where the very first dog ever was launched into space, and it's been the subject of much scrutiny since it was originally established by the Soviet Union back in 1946. There have been many launches from this site, including experimental rockets. There was even a small town erected nearby the secret military facility to house the people working there. From between 1957 to 1961, there were at least 5 nuclear tests performed. And it's still believed that the Russians are using this secret base to develop new technologies. There are even some conspiracy theories that claim UFO sightings from the Soviet era all lead back to Kapustin Yar. People who know a lot about this place refer to it as the Russian Roswell. If you're wondering where such a massive secret base is located, it's about 500 miles south of Moscow in the absolute middle of nowhere, slightly north of the country of Georgia. And as for the most famous alien sighting that has to do with Kapustin Yar, it happened in 1986. When an alien spacecraft allegedly crashed into the nearby Mount Izvestokhovaya. The incident was even reported by the New York Times, who published a piece about a large sphere that crashed and an eyewitness account that claimed an alien appeared from the site wearing silvery overalls with 3 eyeballs. Of course, this has never been confirmed, but who's to say the craft and the 3-eyed alien aren't still hidden underground in this vast and secret site, Area 51. If you happen to be a citizen of the United States of America, there's no military secret base more interesting than Area 51. It's captured the imagination of people all over the world, and it's become an obsession with Americans for over 50 years. It's inspired movies, television shows, and even a bunch of lunatics to try and break into the site just recently, an attempt that was quickly thwarted. But what's really going on in Area 51? Is this really a giant secret military installation? Is it really filled with alien technology? Unfortunately, the truth is that we don't really know. But we do know some things. According to CBS News, Area 51 was first created during the Cold War between Russia and America as a place for the US to develop better and more impressive technologies. Somewhere along the line, the very real military site became associated with extraterrestrial ships and small green aliens. Located in the middle of the Nevada desert, it's easy to see why such a secret base in such a remote location could spawn so many conspiracy theories. The site itself is about 38,400 acres. It's located near Groom Lake, and it has one of the longest runways in the world. We also know that workers don't arrive to Area 51 with their cars. There's actually a private terminal at the Las Vegas International Airport that makes flights to and from the secret site, meaning it's almost impossible to track who goes in and out of the building. But as for aliens, unfortunately we don't have any concrete proof. And the fact is that even in 2021, nobody has any idea what's going on under the Nevada desert. It's the Char-2C supertank. The Char-2C was doomed from the beginning. In the final years of World War I, the French were designing this tank to be the largest ever in the history of the world. And even today, the Char-2C tank remains to be the largest and heaviest tank of its kind to ever be constructed. However, once the First World War ended, development stopped and the tank never went on to see active service. Several of them were still made, but by the time World War II came around, they were basically useless. Even though they were so big and so well equipped, included with a formidable 75mm main gun, newer tanks were simply more powerful and could easily bust through the armor of the enormous and not very covert Char-C2. That said, they were still used in the war as propaganda machines. The Germans knew that the French had at least 10 of these monstrous tanks, and by keeping them out of the battlefield at all costs and never firing a single shot, the Char-2C gained a reputation as being invincible and ended up being used as more of a scare tactic. They were even used in special morale-boosting videos for the French troops. Unfortunately for everyone, the French purposely destroyed the tanks to keep them out of the hands of the enemy. Not a single one is left today. Zuber-class LCAC hovercraft. The Zuber-class LCAC hovercraft looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. This is an enormous piece of machinery, known as a landing craft air cushion vehicle, or simply a hovercraft. It's 100% the biggest hovercraft known to man, and yes, It was introduced by the Russians. It came about in the 1990s and has been continuously modified to be deadlier and deadlier. It's currently being used by navies in Russia, Ukraine, and Greece, and it's not something you want to mess with. It has a cargo area of about 4,300 square feet and can carry at least 3 battle tanks or 10 armored personnel carriers, each loaded with 140 troops. When the LCAC hovercraft is loaded to capacity, it can still hit 50 miles per hour on the water. And because it's a hovercraft after all, this behemoth of a vehicle can easily maneuver over a 5-foot wall. Oh yeah, and it's fully loaded. This monster has multiple rocket launchers, several air missile defense systems, 2 30mm automatic gun mounts, 2 electric power plants on board, and an armored command post with sealed combat stations. If you want superiority on the water, your Navy needs a hovercraft. The Mi-26 Halo helicopter. The Mi-26 Halo helicopter is the largest helicopter in the entire world. It's also the heaviest and most powerful. This helicopter was originally designed to carry massive cargoes weighing up to an outstanding 20 tons. The specifications came about the 1970s as an attempt to create a transport helicopter that could be used for construction projects, ranging from building bridges to setting up power transmission lines. It finally was introduced in 1983 and has been at the top of the helicopter game ever since. This isn't really an attack vehicle, but it's definitely one insane piece of military machinery. The Mi-26 was the first helicopter ever that had a main rotor with 8 blades. It also uses 2 turboshaft engines mounted onto the cabin to give it some monstrous power. This helicopter is able to lift so much weight that some people compare it to the enormous US C-130 Hercules transport aircraft. American Ice Base. Unknown to many Americans, there's a secret United States base under the ice of Greenland known as Camp Century. It's like something out of a James Bond movie. This base is located only 800 miles south from the North Pole, and it's a hidden fortress of ice tunnels stretching at least 2,500 miles. It was originally meant to hold around 600 nuclear missiles underneath the ice, allowing the US to quickly strike anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. The construction originally began in 1959, though at the time the base was considered to be nothing but a scientific research facility. However, Camp Century was abandoned within just 10 years. The first series of tunnels were built, but before the entire facility could get up and running, the military realized they'd made a horrible mistake. It seemed that the ice was melting, and it could cause the entire base to eventually run off into the sea. Perhaps if they had listened to the scientists talking about global warming, they might have realized that building a military base on a quickly melting ice sheet was a horrendous idea. But of course, nobody listened. According to a research paper published in 2016 in Geophysical Research Letters, the abandoned military installation is now threatening to pour dangerous pollutants into the water as the ice sheet melts faster than previously anticipated. It's been estimated that at least 20,000 liters of chemical waste will soon spill into the ocean, which is obviously a pretty bad day for the fishes and, let's not forget, for the humans as well because, well, we use the oceans. Machine gun drone. Let's talk about superiority in the air. We already talked a bit about the killer robots being built by China, but there's a company in Turkey that has already developed a new machine gun drone for its military. It's one of the coolest military vehicles ever, even if it is fully automated. And out of all the concept drones, it's arguably the deadliest. This is the Songar drone, and it's like a souped-up quadcopter that uses 8 blades instead of 4. It also comes with a mounted machine gun and 200 rounds of deadly ammunition. It can shoot targets on the ground while flying innocently enough in the sky. Imagine what looks like a floating balloon in the distance suddenly raining down bullets right on your face. That's a weapon you don't have much defense against. It can currently hit a target from about 600 or 700 feet away, which is pretty impressive. That's about 2 football fields. However, that distance could be doubled very soon as software improves. According to Intelligent Living, the drone can even hit targets at night, because of course it can see in the dark. The Caspian Sea Monster. The Caspian Sea Monster is exactly what it sounds like. This colossal aquatic vehicle was one of the weirdest creations of its time. Just by looking at this beast of a machine, you'd never guess that it can fly. But it absolutely can, or at least it used to be able to. It's been sitting dormant for at least 3 decades. It's one of the most complex flying machines ever built, and in 2020, it began its final journey. This vehicle is a Lun-class Ekranoplan, Russian-built, and it's also the very last of its kind. This model was abandoned after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s and was condemned to rust away to nothing at some naval base in the middle of nowhere on the Caspian Sea. But luckily, it's now being made into a tourist attraction instead of being left to rot into a giant hunk of scrap metal. What was the Caspian Sea Monster used for, you ask? Well, even though it's classified as a ship, it can actually skim the surface of the water up to 16 feet, taking advantage of the aerodynamic principle known as ground effect. The combination of its speed and its stealth made it extremely difficult to detect by radar. According to CNN, the Soviet Union experimented with several different variants of the Caspian Sea Monster during the Cold War, and this final relic was the last of the designs. It's longer than an Airbus A380, and in its prime it could skim the water at 340 miles per hour.
Pine Gap. When you think about secret military bases, you probably think of places like the US and Russia. But in the very center of Australia, there's one of the most secret bases that nobody has ever heard of. It's known as Pine Gap, and some people claim that the base is being used to gather intelligence on Australia's own citizens. Even though officials went on national television to claim that the facility was not being used to spy on anyone, that didn't really calm the public down. People still believe this secret facility is up to no good. But because nobody's allowed to do a real inspection, it's impossible to say what's going on in there. However, some information did come to light in 2013 when it was revealed that the Pine Gap facility had helped the US with drone strikes against terrorist groups in Afghanistan and Pakistan. It looks like Australia isn't quite as peaceful as everybody thinks. Fast forward to 2021, and you don't see much mention of this secret facility anywhere in the news. And it seems as if people have entirely forgotten about it. But rest assured, it's still there.
The Barracuda-class submarine. The Barracuda-class submarine from the French company Naval Group is the newest sub to hit the waters. It was delivered to the French Armament Procurement Agency as recently as November 2020, and it's the newest piece of underwater hardware for the French Navy. It's also a nuclear-powered attack submarine that could basically destroy the world. These new submarines will be replacing the Rubis-class submarines, which were first introduced back in 1988. The new Barracuda program will be the backbone of the French submarine forces until probably 2060. That makes it the top submarine weapon system of the century. However, considering it's such new technology, we simply don't know everything about it. It definitely has the newest and most impressive navigational technology, as well as the best in communication. But it also probably has some seriously deadly weapons capabilities. Navy Recognition has reported that the Barracuda submarine is giving the French Navy combat superiority probably for the first time in history, with a deep strike capability using MBDA naval cruise missiles. The submarine will also employ heavy torpedoes and MBDA SM-39 missiles. Basically, they can blow any less advanced aquatic vehicles straight out of the water. The biggest laser weapon ever. This next vehicle may not be the largest or the most insane, but it's definitely one of the most advanced. It's known as the Indirect Fires Protection Capability High Energy Laser, and it's still in development. It's going to be 10 times more powerful than any laser weapon system currently employed by the United States of America. This is a mobile, 300-kilowatt weapon powerful enough to destroy things like incoming cruise missiles using nothing but lasers. It's really the first we're seeing of the United States pushing hard with laser power. If this enormous laser weapon vehicle turns out to be functional and useful, we could see a lot more variations coming out in which the US military, Navy, and Air Force begin to adopt laser systems that could shoot down all kinds of enemy vehicles. The type of laser being used by this system is essentially focused sunlight. The theory is that a large laser weapon can target a cruise missile with pulses of energy, frying the guidance system within the cruise missile and exploding the warhead before it ever does any damage.
Nazi bunkers in Antarctica. Let's forget about secret modern military facilities for a moment and turn our attention to the secret Nazi bunkers of Antarctica. There are plenty of conspiracy theories surrounding Hitler and the Nazi Party, but perhaps one of the theories with the most truth behind it revolves around our southernmost continent. It all started when the Nazis sent an expedition to Antarctica back in 1938. It's quite murky as to what exactly happened or what the initial purpose of the venture was, but there are a lot of claims that it was a pretty big expedition with scientific ships and a heavy military presence. Then again, others say it was only a single ship that went looking for territory for the German whalers to hunt whales. This was a very long time ago, and the information we have is foggy at best. However, there is some indication that the Nazis really did try to develop a sustainable base on the continent of Antarctica, which would have staked the entire piece of land for the German nation had they won the war. Today, there's no evidence left in the ice, or at least none that anyone has ever found. If there truly is a Nazi base in Antarctica from the 1930s, it's likely been frozen over and filled with snow. This might be something our descendants find in a few thousand years when searching for ancient artifacts. If they can survive the melting of all the polar ice caps, maybe they'll find it then.
The Apache Attack Helicopter. The Apache Attack Helicopter is the original bad boy in the sky. If the United States military had used these back in the Vietnam War, things might have been a little different. However, they weren't entered into service until 1984. But even all these years later, the Apache attack helicopter is one of the deadliest air machines ever. It's been exported all over the world to places like Japan and Egypt, and the United States military has 800 Apaches in service at least. The vehicle was used in Operation Desert Storm, and it's also been used in many peacekeeping operations around the world. The Apache attack helicopter has been upgraded since its original introduction. In 1997, the Apache Longbow was introduced to the United States Army. Think of it like an even more brutal version of the original Apache. The Longbow came fitted with a Longbow Hellfire missile system, which is about as devastating as it sounds. The USS Enterprise. When you think USS Enterprise, you're probably thinking about Star Trek. For whatever reason, Star Trek decided to use the USS Enterprise as their main flagship in the popular TV show. But the fact is that the USS Enterprise is actually a massive United States Navy aircraft carrier. This beast of a machine was commissioned by the US Navy in 1961 and was the largest active warship in the world at the time. It was also the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, making it one impressive beast. There's a lot of information to digest for the USS Enterprise. It was 1,123 feet long and designed to function for a maximum of 25 years. It had a flight deck area of 4.47 acres and a width of 252 feet. More than 800 companies supplied the materials for its construction, including 60,923 tons of steel. It had all the newest and best technology, including the best weapons of the time. The USS Enterprise was armed with 3 Mk-29 NATO Sea Sparrow guided missile launch systems, 2 rolling airframe missile systems, and 3 20mm Phalanx close-in weapon systems. Oh yeah, and this monster was powered using 8 nuclear reactors. The USS Enterprise was officially decommissioned in 2017.
The secret Norway naval base. There was a lot of bases being built during the Cold War, not only by the US and Russia, but also by European powers. One of these secret bases was constructed on the shores of Norway, just outside of the small city of Tromsø. And yes, this base is located in the Arctic Circle, one of the coldest places on Earth. It's called the Olavsvand Naval Base, and it was carved into the side of the rocky coast back in 1967, all but invisible to aircrafts passing overhead. The base was made for submarines to have direct access to the sea. This made it a very important strategic location for Norway to defend against a possible Russian attack. However, Norway doesn't even own its Arctic naval base anymore. Norway apparently lost interest in their secret facility and decommissioned it in 2009. It seems that Norway is no longer worried about a secret submarine invasion from their eastern neighbors. Since its decommission, the base has primarily been used by companies with strong links to Russia, with the Russians actually using the base to dock their own vessels. Talk about the tables turning. Nobody's entirely sure what the Russians could be plotting with the not-so-secretive installation, but it definitely feels like a pretty poor decision on the part of Norway.
The T-14 Armata Supertank. The T-14 Armata is a super tank. It's also a newly developed weapon from the Russian military. It has technological upgrades that allegedly make it more efficient and much scarier than any of the tanks being used by the NATO countries. Even CNET has reported that the Armata tank is the most revolutionary tank in a full generation. What makes it so incredible? Well, it's deadly. It comes with a fully automated and unmanned turret, which is a first for tank operations. This means that it can operate with a crew of only 3 people, while most of the tank runs automatically. The deputy designer of the tank explained to the media in 2015 that for the crew manning the vehicle, it's just like playing a video game. That's how simplistic and easy the controls are. But let's talk about the cannon for a minute. The main armament is a TA-82-1M 125mm smoothbore cannon that can fire 10 to 12 rounds each minute. A single one of these tanks in World War II would probably have wiped out the entire German army. The turret is also designed so that it can be replaced with an even larger 154mm cannon that can overmatch any gun or armor existing in a NATO tank. Force Protection Ocelot. The Force Protection Ocelot, also known as the Foxhound, is one of the coolest patrol vehicles ever. It's not a big and fancy war machine like a sub or a tank, but it's still a critical part of ground operations. It's also incredible. Just look at the armor on this beast. It was first designed to protect British forces against the threats they faced in Afghanistan. However, the vehicle was so agile and versatile that it became a mainstay in the army. It's lighter and smaller than most other patrol vehicles, with a top speed of 70 miles per hour and an armor plating that protects against most improvised explosives. If you're driving through an area riddled with mines, this is the vehicle you want to be inside of. It has all of the newest technology, and it honestly just looks so cool.
Porton Down. Even the United Kingdom has a top-secret military installation. Their facility is known as Porton Down, and it's filled with scientists who apparently carry out research in areas such as chemical weapon warfare and deadly diseases and viruses. According to a recent report from the BBC, one of their correspondents was given rare access to the secret facility. This guy was given a world-class tour. Apparently, they're not doing anything to create new chemical weapons. Instead, they're primarily working to counter naturally occurring viruses that could devastate the world. And they're also working on countermeasures for things like possible nerve gas attacks. But of course, this could be a great big lie. What better way to get the public off your back than by letting a reporter into your secret facility to poke around and give the all clear? The truth is that nobody knows what's in all those vials and beakers. The scientists at the facility could be doing anything from animal testing to developing dangerous biological warfare agents that could wipe out mankind. On the other hand, they could just be trying to eradicate the flu. This is definitely a big issue when it comes to secret military facilities, because unless you're in the know, you just don't know. Secret U.S. underwater bases. This next story seems like something out of a science fiction novel. According to some reports, there could be secret U.S. military bases located under the water that absolutely nobody knows about. And this actually makes sense. According to a report from How Stuff Works, an undersea base would be hard to detect, nearly impossible to infiltrate, and unobservable by modern satellites. Inside of an underwater base, scientists and military professionals could do anything they wanted. So is there really an underwater base somewhere in the US territory? Well, we aren't really sure. The idea to create bases deep underneath the water was first proposed in 1968. There was even a proposal written in a paper by the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics in which they proposed that an underwater base could use special mining techniques and that it could be relatively affordable. But of course, by relatively affordable, they really meant billions of dollars. But let's take a closer look. There are in fact several underwater hotels in the world, but these are located only about 20 feet under the surface or less. If there were a deep sea base somewhere, it would most likely be miles under the surface and completely undetectable. The truth is that if one of these bases does exist like in Austin Powers, nobody would ever even know about it. Nuclear secrets in the forest. One of the biggest cover-ups in Soviet history happened in Poland during the height of the Cold War. Believe it or not, many people refer to this place as the Polish Chernobyl because of how much secrecy surrounded it back in the 80s. I'm talking about a place called Born-Solinowo, located in a forest in the mostly unpopulated region of northern Poland. It's an emerging travel destination for tourists, and it's a beautiful natural area, and it has a very dark past. There were almost 12,000 Soviet troops stationed at the military installation in this region before the collapse of the Soviet Union way back in 1991. According to a report from CNN, the soldiers were guarding a secret nuclear installation that could have been used by the Soviets to completely wipe out just about any Western city in Europe. How exactly the installation was abandoned is still shrouded in quite a bit of secrecy, as is what happened to the 500-kiloton warheads. But one thing we know for sure is that the nuclear silos are still there today and slowly being eaten by the forest. The silos are covered in graffiti, all the storage chambers that once held secret nuclear weapons are now neglected and mostly vandalized, and the facility is basically useless. Still, all those secret nukes must have ended up somewhere. The only question now is, where? If you could find out the secrets to just one of these bases, which would you choose? Let me know in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and come back soon for another amazing video right here on American Eye.